Hey, y'all, welcome back to the Pursuing Truth podcast. I am your host, Levi Brickley, and this is part 3 of a 4-part series on the Real Talk radio show with my brother, Rusty Pickens, in Southern Indiana. About a month ago, I got to go up there and just sit down and have a general conversation with him. On the first 2 episodes of this series, you guys got Rusty's story to success, rising through the ranks of a business, from a temp agency to general manager of a box company, and his awesome success story. In these next 2 episodes, what you are going to get is just some general philosophies, ideas. You'll get some of my background in law enforcement and kind of some of the stories and some of my personal challenges, along with the conversation with Rusty. I hope you guys enjoy this. Make sure you leave a rating on Spotify, like the video, and leave a rating and review on Apple Podcasts. And don't forget to subscribe. You guys enjoy this awesome conversation with my brother, Rusty Pickens. Who knows? We might feel unsatisfied and do 3. I don't know. What did you think about the last one? Did you enjoy it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I think I got carried away.
Well, you know, I actually, I found it a little fascinating because, you know, I don't hear too much of all that stuff, you know, like kind of like we went inside, we kind of just gave like a little brief overview to Mom. And, you know, we talked about how we don't dig into those things a whole lot, and getting behind the microphone kind of just forces you into doing that. So for the listeners, those of you that missed out on the last episode, make sure you do it. I'm not sure the amount of time that these 2 will be separated. Of course, we're recording them the same day. I said at the beginning of the last episode that I had 2 cameras set up. Well, you know, look, guys, I got to admit something. I got ADD, like really bad. And like I tend to hide things from myself. And what I happened to do this time, which is, you know, it's just so normal for me. I have Ed's motorcycle still sitting in my garage, right? A year ago, I went to Florida, and I was like, man, I don't want anybody to break into my house and take my keys. So I'm going to hide my keys somewhere. I haven't drove that motorcycle since. And I spent $2,600 on the motorcycle. And I lost the keys, and I can't even start it up now. Well, I did the same thing with the SD card. I put it somewhere where I thought I wouldn't lose it, and then here we are. I lost camera footage to one of them. Just, you know, the daily struggles of somebody with ADD. You know, it is what it is. But for those of you that missed out on the last episode, Rusty gave his story, just truly an American success story is really what it is. It kind of maybe sounds a little cliche saying that, but
It's weird.
Yeah. But you are, I mean, guy that doesn't have a formal education, a guy that starts basically as a car salesman and gets into a work temp agency at the right time, takes chances, takes advantage of the opportunities that's presented to him, and become successful. I think for anybody that listens to that story, there's a lot that you can take away from that. So now we're going to get into a little bit, I guess you could say a political stance, or I don't know. It's not so much a political stance as it is. It's just a general philosophy of, you know, where a culture is going in regards to the workforce. As a heart of a worker as you are, and as many guys as I see my age that aren't doing anything with their life, you know, hopefully this conversation, you know, probably brings light to some of the things that we've seen. So you're in the hiring process now.
Yeah.
You get a guy. What's some of the biggest challenges that you face? I know that's a pretty vague question.
Yeah, it's tough because it's also depends on the role I'm looking for.
Yeah.
You know, if I'm just looking for an entry-level worker, you know, in my environment, understanding tape measure is important to me. Can you read a tape measure? And it's sad, really, how many people can't read a tape measure. And yet, you know, a lot of times in these interviews, I walk guys through, I say guys and girls, through how they do it every day. They just don't know it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, because all it is fractions.
Yeah.
And I mean, we deal with fractions all day long. We just don't know it.
Yeah. They just haven't applied it to a tape measure yet.
Right. And so I'll walk them through some scenarios, you know, when I say, all right, what's half a dollar?
Yeah.
50 cents. Oh, you can tell me that, right?
Right.
What's half an inch?
Mm-hmm.
Right. It's 0.5 in a decimal.
Right.
You know, and then when they just start correlating that, and I was like, oh, yeah, I can figure this out.
Right.
And, you know, it kind of goes back to empowering those people
Mm-hmm.
that you're capable of doing more. Now, the question is, are you willing to put the effort forth?
Yeah.
And that's where the filtering process begins.
Right.
You know, all interviews, there's so much cliches being said in them. Because the reality is people are there because they want a job.
Yeah.
But why are they there in the first place? That's what I'm digging into.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Do they want to be a part of your company?
Yeah. I mean, do they even know what I do?
Yeah.
What do they do in the company? I mean, I don't know how many interviews I've said in. Do you know what we do? No. So how do you know you want to work here? I don't. I mean, and that right there tells me a lot about our culture is we're just looking for something to do. We're not looking for a career.
Yeah.
If somebody comes to me and says, yeah, I know what you do. Sounds a little interesting. I don't know enough about it, but I read up on you. Or I've had these type of scenarios in an interview. Yeah, I found out you guys dealing with paper. Well, yeah. You know, me being in it for as long as I did, that has many different avenues.
Right.
Right. So
it's like going to an oil business and saying, yeah, you make oil.
Yeah.
Well, what kind of oil?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And I don't expect them to know that. The fact that they put forth the effort to learn what they're applying for tells me something.
Right.
And, you know, I don't even have to, you know, everybody has personal life issues that come up. And so filtering that is tough because you could look at the last 2 years of somebody's life and it could be good, but the previous 10 years prior to that were a train wreck.
Yeah.
And I've ran into countless people that have turned their lives around. And if you went by that whole time period, you wouldn't give them a shot. But the fact that they are, I mean, I've got a guy right now working for me who's had a rough life, just needed an opportunity. And he's taking advantage of it.
That's awesome.
Yeah, you know those.
You know that's what I think is so good about getting into working and being driven to succeed at something is that it really opens up the door to change your life.
Yep.
And a lot of people they look at the job as you know it's just a paycheck. It's just a paycheck, but the reality is like this is your life. You know this is. It may not be like everything that your life is about, but your job is what's going to sustain what your life is about.
Yep.
You know, and we saw that with your story about, you know, raising the kids and wife and family and how that all kind of played out. And I think kind of what fascinates me is, especially in my age group, is that oftentimes people that are 25, 26, 27, why don't they have an idea at a general sense? Why don't they have an idea of what they want? And then once they've decided what they want in life, why don't they go out and at least experiment, but at least with a little bit of drive to say, go in to an interview and say, I know that the company does X, Y, and Z, and I believe I would be a very good candidate for this position because of X, Y, and Z. Why don't people apply their minds to that level when they come into the interview? Do you think it's kind of like upbringing? Do you think it's just kind of school, perspective, drug? What is it?
It's not one thing.
Yeah.
I think culturally, we live in the moment.
Mm-hmm.
And that
YOLO.
Yes.
This is so.
I mean, that's the realities. We live in a culture where we're living in the next 2 moments.
Yeah.
And then that's done and gone. We're in the next one. And because of that, it's almost, it goes back to the old Nirvana. Here we are now, entertain us, right? Yeah. I mean, we're not here to be entertained.
Yeah.
That's not our purpose. Mm-hmm. That's not what God designed us for.
Mm-hmm.
But we have a culture that wants to be entertained. We talked about it, in the church.
Yeah.
Right. And it plays into the job world because, even with COVID, it's really changed. It's starting, I think, really taper off, but it changed, how the workforce went after employees because we were all desperate to find people. And it's just bizarre that nobody was out there. We were all fighting over getting the next person, stealing them from other companies. And, it changed the way we went about hiring. I mean, you look at, during the tail end of COVID and this big surge of bringing people in, how many companies prior to that never had a sign-on bonus to now they do? Look at the fast food chains. How many of them? What is a fast food chain?
We'll give you $500 for making it 2 weeks.
Yes. Yes.
2 weeks.
I mean, I drove by a fast food place here locally that was paying daily.
Yeah.
A daily paycheck. And if you know anything about payroll, that's a nightmare.
Yeah.
I can't imagine how that would go. But why would you have that as a selling point? Because of a culture that lives in the moment.
Yeah, really. Wow. Every day?
Yeah.
That literally took my ADD mind 15 seconds to register that because I can't imagine getting paid every single day. Like here's $50. I mean, it's like kind of like a getting paid under the table type job.
And that's
weird.
That's the other thing you got to think about. All right, what employees do you expect to get if you're paying daily?
Right, you're going to get the YOLO crowd.
Yeah,
the people that. Here's the thing: like you get these people that come into the workforce, and they again think they're like, this is a nice idea. This pays a little bit more than my burger flipping job. So yeah, I want the job, but they don't have any desire to grow with the company. Mm-hmm. And especially, manufacturing, especially, maybe there's different, I know that you work for a family-oriented, family-owned company. So there may be like some cap to where they want to go and the potential they want to be at. Maybe they get to a certain point and that's where they decide just to kind of plateau at. But a lot of businesses, and especially entrepreneurials, want to go out and be the best on the freaking market.
Yep.
And so like somebody that comes in and they're just like, willy-nilly about it, this is whatever. Why would I, as an employer, want to hire you doing that with that mentality? That here and now, I don't know. Maybe it's an instant gratification.
I will say there are value in those employees. I'm not going to take that away because you have those people that consistently come in there and just want to do their job.
Yeah,
there's value in those guys, and I don't want to take that away. But we're in a culture where we're desperate for leaders.
Mm-hmm.
Leadership is a lost art.
Yeah,
it really is. And I mean. I had a scenario with an employee doing a review, right? And in that review, he's not happy with the pay rate change I gave him after the review. He thought he earned more. And, through the conversation, what people disconnect with is you're not getting paid for what you're going to do. You're getting paid for what you're doing.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
What you're going after is what you're wanting, right? That's what you're working for. And I learned this early on, and I think it's what's helped me is I'm not working for the job I have. I'm working for the job I want. Mm-hmm. And when you approach it like that, if the job you want is what you're doing, do it, right? But if it's not enough for you, challenge yourself. What do you need to do?
Yeah.
When I was an assistant on the machine, I wanted to be the operator. So what did I need to do? I need to learn how to operate.
Right.
I still need to do my job, right? Mm-hmm. And thank goodness I had enough people around me to let me learn.
Right.
But there's also times where I just had to observe.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to sharpen your learning skill set. You can't learn one way.
Yeah.
So that's tough. And I think what happens a lot of times with people when they look at, even in my role, when they look at an entry level to where I'm at, running a plant, running a sales force, and I think, man, I'll never get there. Well, if you go from here to here, this giant leap, no, that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
But you got to break it down in chunks.
Well, and like you said, you kind of thought, I'll never get there. And what was fascinating about your story is it was just the chipping away little by little and the challenges that were presented with it, not even just at work, but also in home, personal life. And people, I'll be, I got to be honest here. I've been in law enforcement for 5 years. And, next May will be 5 years. And I have no direction of where I want to go. And I think that there's a lot of people like me in the workforce that are like that. I show up to work. Mm-hmm. I do my job. I do a good job. I do the best to my ability. But I will say this. I don't overextend myself either because I don't know where I want to go.
I think that's the majority of people right there.
And that is a conversation I've had with my boss. So I'm completely comfortable having that conversation. I've told him straight that I don't know where I want to go in law enforcement. And I think that maybe there's like a little bit inside of me, the immaturity or the inner, I feel like I can do more. I want to do more than this. And so, establishing the platform and doing other things though. Like, it's not just like, that's my job. Like, I'm doing other things as well on top of it. And ultimately, I will say, like, I don't foresee myself 10 years from now in law enforcement. I foresee myself doing something totally different. I just don't know what it is yet.
Well, I think the last 20, 30 years, maybe even further, our education system and even our, how do I say this, the psychological side of our culture has changed people's approach to work. Mm-hmm. In the sense of, how long have you heard do what you love?
Yeah. Yeah, seriously.
Yeah. And, don't make that your job.
Right.
Because you're going to hate what you love.
Yeah, exactly.
But people translated that for the longest time that I don't love doing this, so I'm not going to do it. Mm-hmm. Right? I did not come into the box industry because I love it.
Right. Who's like, I want to make a box today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But what I do love about it is every day is a new challenge. Mm-hmm. I don't look at the finished product as what I did all day.
Right.
I looked at what are all the problems that I overcame, because that's really where you feel that achievement. Mm-hmm. Even though I made a box at the end of the day, what problems did I overcome that I challenged myself with?
And I think I can really resonate with that because, you did artwork. Mm-hmm. I did artwork. And there's that drive in between of like, I don't know what the finished product is going to be like, but whatever it turns out being, this is what I'm left with. And it was almost like the adventure in between getting it there. And I think, that's what I love about entrepreneurship. And I think too, a lot of young people, and I put myself here, obviously, a lot of young people don't want to show up to the workforce because they think that they can do it on their own, absent of having to work the 9 to 5.
Yeah.
And I think what it leads to, being the guy that still shows up to work and still does my job, that still effectively communicates to my bosses where I'm at mentally, emotionally, and where I see myself in the future, is the reason why I'm having this conversation. But so many people in my age group that have that philosophy of entrepreneurship, like, I'm not going to show up to that 9 to 5 job because I believe that I can make $250,000 in a 2K tournament. I think that I can go do live streaming all day playing video games. Now, at its essence, is there anything wrong with video gaming? Not necessarily. But what's wrong with it is when it becomes your lifestyle to where you think as a 25, 26-year-old man who hasn't established a platform to really kind of do that, you haven't like went out and bought the computer, you you just haven't even invested into it, and you're thinking, I'm going to get there if I just believe it. And well, that brings me to another kind of topic about law of attraction, but I can't. It bothers me because I bust my tail. You know, for everything I have, I bust my tail.
Why you do it?
I do it because I believe that I'm more than just sitting at home playing a video game or.
So when do you define that value?
I think, like, you mean like the work ethic?
Yeah. When do you say, you know, what I did today achieved what I wanted?
You know,
do you ever feel that way?
At my current job?
Yeah.
I mean,
if we look
it's rare.
Here's what I would say from a world's perspective, right?
Yeah.
I'm a box maker.
Yeah.
You're a police officer. Which one's more virtuous?
Obviously, being a police officer.
Yes. But how do you feel?
But yeah, well,
why do I feel this way over you?
Yeah, well, and I think too. Law enforcement, working for a small agency especially, has its very dry moments. Does that mean that I would be completely satisfied running and gunning? I don't think so. I would like that either. I think I'd get burned out. And I think that, you know, there's days where I'm like, oh, that was so stinking awesome. You know, I figured that out. I solved this. I chased this. I chased that. And, you know, it is that adventure of like, you never know what's going to come. But for me, it's like you're dealing with a collapsing culture. And in its collapse, I'm in a political representation position where I have no impact outside of being in this uniform because to some regards, I'm constrained by what I'm allowed to talk about, constrained by my schedule and consistency. It's really hard for me to get out of that. And then so for me to really feel like I achieved something is to create. And I think like that's where like this whole thing, all of this comes from, obviously.
Well, now you're doing what you love.
Yeah. And here's the thing. I haven't made a single dime off of this.
Yeah.
But it's almost like it's my of course I don't have kids either. Yeah. So here's the other dynamic, right?
Yep.
Not having kids allows me the freedom to do that.
Yeah.
I do kind of wish I did have kids or whatever, but it really does allow me the freedom to do this. And hopefully, you know, the idea is that there's a potential that it could eventually financially support me. But here's the thing I'm not going to do. And I'm not going to go quit my job or put myself in a position where I'm going to end up losing my job because I believe in this thing so much.
Yeah, but you have a different mindset. Not everybody carries that mindset.
Yeah.
I think this is where things fall apart.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. You know, when I look at somebody wants a promotion, right? And I ask the question every time, why do you want this? And I will say the majority of people want a promotion because they want to get paid more.
Yeah.
That's not a driver. I don't want that. Because
Yeah.
if that's your drive, it's only a temporary fix.
Mm-hmm.
It's alcohol, right? It's only going to make you feel good for a little bit. Then you're going to feel like, I need to earn more than this. This is hard.
Yeah.
That's inevitable.
Mm-hmm.
So this is where me, as a Christian man, ask myself, why am I working? Why am I doing this daily? Some days are terrible. Some days are torturous. Why am I doing it? Just like we talked about in the last episode, you know, with love. Love is just a decision to make, to do the right thing, whether you feel like it or not.
Right.
And my work is not based on how I feel.
Mm-hmm.
My work is based on why am I doing it? Because when I work as if I'm working for the Lord.
Right.
And we have a culture where if you have no Lord like that,
right. Yeah.
that is that permanent fixture. What are you working towards? Everything's temporary.
Yeah.
And when it doesn't feel good, you're on to the next thing.
Yeah.
So you got this constant movement of your feelings.
Yeah.
And that's how it dictates your life. Feelings are going to lead you wrong. Not always.
And I 100% agree with that.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people in my profession get caught up in the ego that it presents.
Yeah.
You know, obviously, you
Well,
know, I have a lot of authority. I have a lot of freedom. I have this.
Look at the last 2 years and the view of cops.
Yeah.
Right? Because there are some bad cops that their egos got a hold of it.
Yeah.
And they thought they were above it.
Yeah.
And it's sad because now they gave this name to all cops.
Yeah.
And now the culture feels it.
Yeah.
And so I commend those cops that are still sticking through this.
Right.
Because it's tough.
Yeah.
But what I challenge is because it is tough.
Yeah.
I mean, there was times where it's probably great to be a cop because life was easy.
Yeah.
People respected you without you having to try and earn it every day.
Right.
But you're in a culture now where that's flipped on you. And this goes back to you're going to fall into the emotions of it and battle out of it.
Yeah.
Or the ones that are really going to make a difference are saying, no, I'm not that cop.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
I am not that person, and I am not working for that. I'm working for the Lord, and that's what I'm representing.
And that right there, that is the part that I love, is that I'm a very community-oriented police officer. I really take the time to engage with people and just have a general, normal conversation. Like, even the dating world is like this. But the humanity of my profession is utterly stripped away from me. And for me to be able to, as an officer, build a relationship with somebody and they see me as a person, not as this Kevlar vest with a gun on my hip.
Yeah.
That they see me as a person, then that says to them, the next officer that they come in contact with, that officer is a person too. And that's the number one thing I love about the job. I also love the other aspect of holding somebody accountable that's beating their wife. Okay. Yeah. I love taking somebody into custody.
You're a justice-driven person.
I am a very justice-driven person. Sometimes very vulgar about my view of justice, but seriously, yeah. And so then, you know, here on this, it's again that, way for me to release, some of the tension that is caused from my job and reapply some of the negative things that I see and reapply them positively into the world by having genuine conversations that somebody's listening and they're like, I never thought of it that way. But I know this. I've seen some horrendous things, extremely horrendous things that unfortunately, I mean, fortunately I can't talk about, and you don't want to hear about it because it's that bad. And I had to deal with myself internally on that.
Yeah.
I mean, if
you don't have a good foundation, good luck.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Well, and so like I was in this, like, you know, probably 4 or 5 month spurt of like serious depression, you know, after my last breakup. And it was really, really, really hard for me. And then I get to December of 21. And it was just like, boom, boom, boom with these calls. And I mean, the worst calls in 5 years I've ever been on happened within 5 weeks of each other. And so then I found myself, I wish I could give details to that because I'm just such a storyteller. But how does somebody deal with this? How do I deal with this? What's my perspective of it? Well, I'll give one example, without giving details. There was this guy that from this call he resulted being in the hospital. And I remember how respectful he was to me, how respectful he was to the nurses. And after this incident, we had what's called a critical incident debrief, where we get around and we talk about our feelings and sing Kumbaya all together and pass stick around. And I remember my takeaway from that was, here is a person that God created just the same way he created this person. Absolutely. And the humanity that brought out in me, to see that person as just like me, even though he was on the opposite end of the law as me.
Yeah.
And so often we look at people in these boxes, and we categorize people, and we don't look at them with the mercy and grace that God has for us and our sins. And these 3 calls, bang, 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 then like I realized I need to take a break. And so I decide, I'm going to go out in the country by myself, read this book called Ego is the Enemy by Ryan Holiday. And I just remember, like, I took that time to pray and just like, God, tell me what you want me to do. I'm yours. Like, I can't live for myself no more in this, because everything right now in my situation was all of my depression. Everything was because I believed that if I'm just this like stand up dude, if I'm just this like really good hard worker coming into the workforce and doing all of these great things and being flashy in all of my ego, that I'll get the woman that I want, that I will create the type of relationship that I want. And I subjected that to God. I gave it to him that day, and then I went viral. 1 week later, my podcast started taking off. And then now it's been, obviously 10 months, and there's been some growing spurts here and there, but those things, brings me on here a sense of joy, because now I'm able to get behind the microphone and, impact people and like look at, I'm obviously, if you guys, okay, I've never said it on the podcast before. I am obviously a conservative. I'm not going to say who I vote for,
well, but I am obviously.
Well. Huh?
You haven't hid that very well.
Yeah, well, no, but I've never directly said it.
It's true.
But I'm obviously a conservative, and
I'll tell you a funny story.
I'm not. One more thing, I just don't want people to look at, because he's a conservative or because she's a Democrat or he's a Democrat, that we can't work together and have conversations to deal with the issues that we have in culture to find solutions.
So, in Pennsylvania, it's a very diverse culture where we lived.
Right.
There's a lot of different people. So we were surrounded by a lot of different perspectives on politics.
Yeah.
Right. And I give you an example. As a conservative, I am, but as a conservative, a lot of times we vote on us taking care of ourselves, not taking care of everybody else. Mm-hmm. I mean, honestly, if you look at the conservative platform, that's what happens. And that's where, as a culture, we're steered away from that mindset now because we feel like we should take care of everybody. So the question is it the government's job?
Yeah.
And that's where the dividing line happens, right? Do I feel like we should take care of people? Yes, but I don't think the government should tell me to.
Yeah.
That's why I have the church.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the dividing line. But we don't, until you sit down and talk with people on that side of the fence, saying the government should help us, and understanding it's not asking for handouts necessarily. That's not their approach to it.
Right.
Their approach is to it. It's a systematic way to take care of our welfare.
Yeah.
And the intentions are great,
Mm-hmm.
right? And it goes back to that old adage, which I tell a lot of the people a lot of my supervisors that work for me, we judge ourselves by our intentions, but others by their actions.
Yeah.
And, because of that, we get it wrong.
Man, that's so true.
Yeah. We get it wrong a lot of times, but until we understand their intentions and then walk them through that, we learn a lot of things.
Right.
And then we also learn how to understand each other. And then if you want to start heading the same direction, it's a whole lot easier.
Right.
But we're in a culture right now, we're so divided. But I think ultimately we all want the same thing. We want the poor taken care of.
Yeah.
We don't want homelessness.
Yeah.
We don't want, I don't want the black community to feel neglected.
Yeah.
I don't want them to feel shunned.
Absolutely. Right.
That's not what we want.
Right.
It's the perspective on how we're going about doing it.
Well, who has responsibility?
Me as an individual.
Right.
Right. I am not asking the government to do what I should do myself.
Well, and that right there, that right there is the defining difference, in my opinion, is the individual responsibility or the collective responsibility.
Yeah. And I've always been a believer. I manage this way.
Yeah.
If not one person's responsible, nobody's responsible.
Mm-hmm.
When you do a community responsibility, it takes responsibility away
Absolutely.
from the individual.
Absolutely.
Because then, he'll take care of it. I don't have to. Because, we all do it, right?
Yeah.
No, that's not how that happens. By nature, we're going to perform to the minimal expectations.
Right. Yeah.
And when you have a community expectations, by nature, the majority of us are going to do the bare minimum.
Right. Right. Right.
So that's where I feel like that's a me issue. If I'm a bigot, that's a me issue. That's not a cultural issue.
Right. Right. Exactly.
A lot of things play into why you would be that way. Not that I'm a bigot, but there's a lot of things in your life that would cause you to be that way. But if you don't ever come to terms with this is wrong, you got consequences to it.
Right.
But it's not a cultural issue.
Right.
It's an individual issue that has a heart problem.
Mm-hmm.
And we lose sight of changing people's hearts. Instead, we're forcing changing people's actions.
Yeah.
It's not changing their hearts.
I.e. paying taxes. You have to pay You have to pay higher taxes because we want this type of welfare or...
what's funny is we left, United States left England because we were paying taxes. Now, it was going to the wealthy. Mm-hmm. And the poor people are suffering more. Mm-hmm. It's just interesting. In many ways, we become that. Mm-hmm. I mean, our poor, yes, they are probably better off than back then. By all means, they're better off than back then, right? Because the welfare state has taken care of people, but almost to a point where we're enabling it, right? Not that all welfare people are wanting to stay where they're at. I don't want to present that. I mean, look at Mom, right?
Right.
We
obviously, I've talked about it. We were raised in that environment.
Yep. Well, it just goes back to the conversation last time. It blows my mind that I'm able to be doing what I'm doing, get paid what I'm getting paid. I never thought that would happen in my life.
Yeah.
I remember, being a preschool teacher thinking, making $40,000 a year is nuts. That I can't wrap my head around that. Yeah. Nowadays you're like, what?
Yeah.
How do you live?
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
But, at that time, I'm like, I'll be happy that day I can do that. Right? I was happy that day I did it. I felt like I accomplished something. Did I stop there? No. But I think what happens many times is, in this culture, again, we look too many steps ahead of that.
Yeah.
Right? And a lot of times it goes back to that victim mentality.
Yeah. That's where I was going to take it.
I hate the state I'm in. Mm-hmm. And you just focus on what's holding you down instead of what you can do to bring yourself out of it.
Yeah.
Right? That's the American side of this that we all miss is that individual effort that accomplishes
And
things.
that individuality is what has brought us so many great things.
Absolutely.
I mean, look at, talking about the Ford behind us,
Yeah.
the Mustang.
Yeah.
Look at Henry Ford.
Yeah.
You know, he was going to go out and do something individually that had never been done before, which was to create the assembly line,
Yeah.
to mass produce the Model T. And then here we are 70 years later with a stinking Mustang behind us. It's all tore apart, of course. But that right there is the American essence of who we are and what we used to take pride in as a country.
I think what happened though, where I guess the defeatedness comes out, is everybody wanted to be the Henry Ford.
Yeah, yeah.
But I mean, again, we lose sight of what was it that Henry Ford was successful in?
Yeah.
Was it the amount of money he made, or was it what he accomplished?
Yeah.
I mean, he didn't reap all the benefits from all manufacturing that did the assembly line process.
Yeah.
He just reaped it from his own company,
Yeah.
right? It was that accomplishment that made the ripple effect throughout the world,
Right.
right? You know, you think about Thomas Edison.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, he accomplished something, and the dividends of that far as outweighs financial gains.
Right.
Right? What
Because
he's
look at
done,
the way it's impacting culture
Yeah,
now.
absolutely.
But innovation takes creativity and individual responsibility of, I'm not satisfied with the previous product that I made, so how can I make it better? It's that drive every day to essentially be 1% better. If I can just tweak it just a little bit here, maybe this will make it a little bit better, or if I do this, or if I cut it here, if I do that, that's what makes us great. But if we're in a culture, going back to what you initially said, in a culture of, I just want to love what I do and feel good about what I do and be happy with what I do, and that's all that matters is my happiness. If we never get where our calling is, right? I mean,
here's the crappy part that, you know.
Okay.
Yeah.
He flew into a spider web. We're good.
Here's the crappy part is we live in a culture of equity and equality, the desire for that. But life could care less, right? And so because of that, when life gives us what we don't want, we don't know how to handle it.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes we just shut down because we don't know how to handle it. And then we just dig ourselves further in a hole, right? And if we would take that approach, just like Henry Ford did, like Thomas Edison did, you know, you name so many guys. And it isn't necessarily you got to come up and you have to innovate some manufacturing or some new thing in life that's going to change the world. Right. No, if you take that approach in just your own personal life to say, you know what, today I'm going to make my life better than I did yesterday. Mm-hmm. You're not always going to win that battle.
Right.
But if you have that mindset and not get stuck on, oh, I lost today, I hope tomorrow's not bad.
Right.
And then you're focusing on that negativity. You know, I've always kind of frowned upon those people that are all positive. You still got to be real with yourself.
Gosh,
what can you accomplish?
It's so cliche is what it is.
It is. But you got to be real with yourself. Can you accomplish it? Mm-hmm. Set that goal you can accomplish. That's when you're going to feel like you did something. But if you're going to set a goal you can't accomplish, you're going to be defeated.
Right.
Right? And, you know, I remember when I first became a supervisor, and I went through some leadership courses, which is good. It was just a little thing that my work did. They brought this lady in and kind of did some leadership coaching. But one of the things I pulled out of there is setting goals. Set my 1-year goal, set my 5-year goal, set my 10-year goal, and write them down and put it in a place you're going to see every day.
Right.
Right? Because what happens is, as you're going through your day, how is what you're doing apply to that goal? Is it getting you there or taking you away? Mm-hmm. Right? And so one of my goals, I want to say my 5-year goal at that time was I wanted to buy a house. Mm-hmm. Right. Because, for the longest time I rented and I felt like I was just throwing my money away.
Yeah.
And I'm like, man, I wasn't in a financial situation to buy a house. So in 5 years, I wanted to buy my own house.
Mm-hmm.
And
good thing you didn't, because of the way that you were progressing in the company.
Yeah. And I didn't buy my first house until what? I was 14 years, no, it's about 13 years in our marriage.
Yeah. So that was what, 8 years ago?
Yeah.
Something like that?
Yeah.
So that's crazy.
Right.
And you had been in the workforce for 14 years before you did that.
Yeah. And, and some people think, man, you just threw away money for 13 years. Yes and no. I had to do that to get where I wanted to.
Mm-hmm.
I had to be nimble. Mm-hmm. And buying a house is a commitment.
Yeah.
Especially, you don't know. I mean, who would have known 2 years ago the market would be.
Exactly. It's like, I feel that now. I'm kind of at a place in my life where I'm ready to move on, have a change. Living in a small town all my life, and I bought my house, and now it's like, dang it, I didn't capitalize on the market. And so because I didn't capitalize on the market, it's like, whoa, do I wait a couple more years? Even though I'm feeling like,
I'll tell you what, that was a scary time for me.
Yeah.
Because, I bought my first house, and the first time I sold it was scary.
Yeah.
Even though all the signs I'm telling me I'm in a good spot.
Yeah.
You don't know. You don't know what's going to come your way until it starts happening. But I'm thinking, man, am I going to walk away upside down on a house? That's scary.
Yeah.
And I'm moving to this other place that, man, what am I going to do if this goes south?
Yeah.
I've already made a commitment.
And I think go back to working. I think you kind of tie yourself down a little bit there in your personal life. Buying a house. I'm kind of at I'm at a total different place than you were at 28,
Yeah.
Being 28 years old, the world is wide open to me. I don't have kids. I don't have a wife. I don't have any baggage back home. I don't got anything I got to cover. Like, I can just pack the things that I want to take and move anywhere in the world and start a completely new life wherever I want to go.
Yeah.
Not necessarily out of resentment, but something to experience something new. And it's like, obviously you kind of get in law enforcement, you 5 years in, well, you're kind of now a veteran. You're more at the expertise level of the job.
Probably now this day and age too.
Oh yeah. No, we're I think it's something like 80 or 90% don't make it past 5 years. There's a lot of struggles in there, like the calls that I was talking about and stuff like that. That pushes
politics
people out.
dips so much into it too that you can't do anything about.
Yeah.
You just gotta comply.
Yeah.
And by nature, that's probably tough.
And it's like, even me, here I am. I'm talking about guys that I know of that, are living this willy-nilly life, not wanting to go out and even get a job. I mean, shoot, I know so many guys that don't even want to get a job and they're my age.
But why?
And it just, it has to be what you were, I mean, really, what I've seen is just exactly what you said. It's that I want to do what I love, and I'm not quite sure what I love yet.
Yep.
And me, I've always been one that I don't care if I love the job. Like regardless of me not knowing, my conversation with my command staff is, I'm here to do my job. I'm going to do the best that I can at my job. But I don't know if I want to work in the schools. I don't know if I want to be a detective. I don't know if I want to be a supervisor on the street. And I sure don't know if 40 years from now, if I want to be in your chair. I have no clue in law enforcement where I want to go. But I know today I'm going to come in and do the best job to the best ability that I can. And I think that a lot of people my age say, I don't know what I love yet. So I can't walk into work and have that mentality to do my best, put my best foot forward. And I think that that's a defining difference between somebody like us that looks at the adversity and doesn't say, well, I'm a victim to it, and this is all I will ever experience. Instead, it's like, well, I know I don't want that. I don't want my kids to go through that.
Yeah, I mean, it cracks me up, but you think about a lot of things in life. People can tell you what they don't want, but they can tell you what they want. They can't tell you what they want. I mean, I'll give you a prime example. How many times, as a family, hey, where do we want to eat tonight? I don't know. Right. You want to go here? No. You want to go here? No. Well, what do you want? I don't know.
Yeah. You want pizza?
That's
no.
people.
Yeah.
We know what we don't want, but we have no clue what we want.
Yeah.
No clue. And so in that, you get indecision and no commitment.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because then when I do find out what I want to just be able to go do it.
All right, y'all, that is all I have for you on this episode of the Real Talk Radio Show with my brother in Southern Indiana, Rusty Pickens. We had a fantastic conversation here. Tune back in again next week as we continue with this conversation, and we will wrap up this short series on the Real Talk Radio Show. Guys, make sure that you subscribe, like the video, share it with your friends and family if you got something valuable from this conversation, or you think that there's somebody who might relate with the conversation, because that's what we're all about here, is impacting you. All of this is for you, and I hope you guys enjoyed. So make sure that you subscribe, follow us on Spotify, leave a Apple Podcast review if you have not done that. You guys have a great rest of your week. Go forth and conquer. God bless.